Yay! You know what? If you are here, you are my favorite readers because that means you have stuck it out through our technical difficulties. Thank you so much for waiting. You know what? I'm totally double downing, and this is going to be the best webinar we have ever done. Now, there are a couple of interesting things that I want you to know about this. First of all, we're doing this in my home. And so I'm inviting you into my home because I want this to feel cozy. I want this to feel like a fireside chat, even though it's about 98 degrees right now in Orlando. We don't have a fireplace. We have the air conditioning cranked down to 72. But I wanted to bring you in because I want to go inside the book, and I want to go inside your personality and show you parts of yourself that you haven't seen before that allow you to be more valuable, more fascinating. Now, there's somebody that I want to introduce you to really quickly since we're here in my home. Ed, will you join me? This is Ed Normand, who is the president of the company and conveniently also my husband.
It's going to be our home.
Our home. Welcome into our home. So I was saying to Ed this morning, I was like, well, since it's at our home, what do we do if like a UPS guy comes, or what do we do if a lawn guy has a leaf blower?
I thought hard about that, and I've got my 20 ready just in case the lawn blower starts. So
okay, so if the lawn blower starts and the door opens, that $20 bill is going out the door.
Yeah. So here's what I want you to do, though. I'm going to be in the background so you can hear from the master, but we're going to have some chat going, and we're going to have some questions going, and it'll be on the right side of your screen with the chat. Tell us your questions. What do you want to find out for the book? What are the questions you've been dying to ask the author about? What are the things you can learn? What was clear? What wasn't clear? Let us know. I'm going to come back in twice to bring you some answers. The best questions that we read out get a prize. So don't be shy. Don't hold back. Let us know. Give it to us. That's what we're here for. So
every question that actually gets read in between Ed and I in our Q&A, you're going to win an amazing prize that I'm going to tell you in just a little bit. We're also going to be doing some cool speed trivia, so get your fingers poised on the type pad. And finally, tell us if you got feedback on the book. We love getting your feedback and hearing your comments. Okay, I got to get going.
All right.
I'll see you in a little bit. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today. First of all, I'm going to be talking to you about seeing yourself the best of how the world sees you, seeing yourself at your most valuable. The cover of the book has a mirror on it. The reason why it has a mirror is because it reflects the best of how the world sees you. So imagine that every time you're looking at this book, it's showing how other people see you when you're operating at your A. You know those moments when you are just totally in the flow? You are in the zone. You know that you have the highest likelihood of having a successful conversation or negotiation or meeting or interview. That's what this book is going to help you do. And I, in our conversation today, am going to explore some of the things that you probably haven't seen about it yet. Next, we love your interaction. We have 5 of our team members who are moderating the chat, so you're going to get lots of great attention. We're going to be giving you an opportunity to get a signed special edition version of How the World Sees You. We're going to talk for about 60 minutes, but I'll hang around and talk with you longer if you've got more Q&A, unanswered questions. And then finally, we are doing an encore performance tomorrow. So if you have to leave early, we're going to be doing another live webinar tomorrow because we are so grateful to you for sticking around with us. So let's get in. The very beginning of the book, the very first words on page 1 are unlearn boring. Unlearn boring. You don't learn how to be fascinating. You unlearn how to be boring. Here's what that means. When I was growing up, what's my last name? It's Hogshead. Yes, it's really my last name. It's on my birth certificate. And I remember getting beaten up on the playground because it was my legal name. And I would come in and talk to my mother, Mrs. Hogshead, and say, why can't we just have a normal last name, you know, Smith, Jones? And she said something to me I'll never forget. She said, it's the thing about our name that makes it different that will one day make you love it. And the same is true for you. The things about you that make you different are what make people love you. So when you're in an environment that's competitive or distracted, when you feel like an underdog, focus on those ways in which you're different. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, when I was 7 years old, my sister was the #1 ranked swimmer in the world. She had 2 Guinness Book World Records. Can you imagine me being 7? Can you imagine a little bit of the complex that came from that and from Hogshead? And it only got worse. Then she won 3 gold medals and a silver in the Olympics. Nobody applaud. And then the next year, my brother graduated from Harvard. So there I was a baby of the family, I was 7 years old, and I wanted to find a way to be fascinating too, but I didn't know how to stand out. You know, I wanted to find that light, and I looked at the situation, I was like, okay, I can't do athletics, I can't do academics, those trees have been peed on, what am I going to do? And so I did what you do when you're not good at athletics or academics. I went into marketing. So there is a way that you can stand out using creativity. But when I was 7, back in the days of 7, I was looking for a way that I could find the light. So I decided that I was going to do dance. Now, here's the truth. I really wasn't very good. And I think my dance teacher agreed, because when she said to me, you know, Sally, you're not very good, but you've got a certain spark. And I thought to myself, oh, a spark. I can work with that. Hand me the kerosene. So I took dance lessons, and I was totally into it, and then she gave me a solo in the dance recital. So I thought this was an amazing honor. In reality, I think she just wanted me to get one of those custom costumes that are expensive. The costume showed up. You can see it here. It's pink. It had 2 tight elastic straps. It was highly flammable polyester with itchy sequins, and I absolutely loved it. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. So I did the night of the dance recital. I waited for my cue, and just as I was about to go find the light, my dance teacher walked up to me, and she said, just don't forget the steps. Well, you can probably guess what happened next. I walked out on stage, and immediately I forgot all the steps. So I was standing there on stage, and the music stopped, and the spotlight turned off, and I could see into the audience my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and my mother covered her mouth. And I looked back at my dance teacher, and she looked horrified. And immediately the cascade of black tears began. And it was in that moment that I decided that it was much easier to just be boring. Now, you have had this experience at some point in your life when you've put yourself out there, when you were totally focused, when you wanted to be completely on your A game, and for some reason you failed. You didn't get the job. You didn't get the relationship. Something happened that got in the way. What did you do in that moment? Most of us shut down. What I found in my research of talking to 300,000 professionals is that when people feel like they can't compete, they simply shut down, and they decide that it's easier to be unnoticed. It's easier to be boring. Now, here's what I want you to get. You don't learn how to be fascinating. You have to unlearn how to be boring. So your challenge here is to make sure that you're not boring, that you can communicate in a way. Because there's a time when you want to find the light. You don't have to find the light. You are the light. And when you can make your personality shine, you can light up the world. The greatest value that you can add is to become more of yourself. You don't have to change who you are. You just have to become more of who you are. And so today I want to help you become more of who you are, more of that person that you've always been. We don't want to change yourself. We want to make you more effective by tapping into what you're already doing right. Now here's a photo of my parents, my mom and dad. As you can imagine, they're incredible. They're celebrating. We just had their 65th wedding anniversary, and I met my dad for dinner the other night. He showed up in his plaid shirt, it's kind of spiffy. He said, "Do you like my shirt?" And he's very team-oriented. You know, he's very much part of Team Fascinate. I said, "Sure, Dad, I like your shirt. Why?" And he said, "Because it's the archetype matrix." That was awesome. So it was my parents who taught me, don't change who you are, become more of who you are. So find a competitive advantage that you can apply that comes very naturally to you in all of your communication, not only in your marketing, but in all the discussions that you have, all the conversations that help you do the work that really matters out in the world. So I remember my dad telling me a story when I was a little girl. He said, you know, Hogshead is actually a really very respected name. It's a barrel that holds 62 gallons. And I remember thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. I could work with that. So do you want to see the tagline that I wrote when I was a little girl? Okay, here it is. A hogshead is a barrel that holds 62 gallons. So what's your last name, smartass? Now that, my friends, is how to unlearn boring. So here's what we're going to be getting into. You have 3 threats that you face every time you communicate. Distraction, competition, and commoditization. When you're talking with people, they're distracted. Your competition is getting better all the time, and if you become a commodity, you have to compete on the basis of price, lower your fees, lower your salary, and lower how much you're worth out in the world because you're not perceived as being as valuable. The average attention span used to be 20 minutes. Now, according to the BBC, it's only 9 seconds. 9 seconds is the same attention span as a goldfish. So every time you communicate, every time you go into a new business pitch or a job interview or a first date, the person that you're talking to may only have a 9-second attention span. So think about that. That really changes the way we need to communicate. We can't take our time to get to the point. We have to find a way to identify what makes us valuable and why the other person should listen to us so we can build stronger relationships based on who we authentically are. Well, there's a science behind this. And the research has been showing us over the course of the last year that overwhelmingly, your success is not about your skills, it's not about your training. Your success is about understanding who you are at your best. The Carnegie Institute of Technology says 85% of your financial success is due to your personality, your ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Shockingly, only 15% is due to technical knowledge. But think how we get trained. Think how we train our teams. We train them on technical knowledge about the products and services instead of training them about how to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Well, this is going to be filling in the training that you already have so that you can have that missing piece. The missing piece that's not about how you see the world, but about how the world sees you. Now, up until this point, if you've done an assessment like Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, DISC, Colby, those are outstanding assessments, and they're important because they give us a point of view of how you see the world. They're built on psychology, and they see the world through your lens. But there's a different perspective today as things become more distracted, competitive, and commoditized. And that perspective can't be seen through psychology. It comes through branding. Branding shows us how the world sees you and how the world sees you at your best. What do people value in you? Brands don't care how the brand sees the world. Brands are much more attuned to how does the customer see the brand, how does the consumer see the brand, and what can they offer that's different and better than other people. And the same is true of you as things become more competitive and crowded. What can you do differently and better than other people? In other words, how does the world see you at your best? And if I could give you a version of the book, here's what I would want to do. I would want to add those 3 words here on the cover. How the world sees you at your best. Every time you look in this mirror, I want you to see this is how the world sees you at your best. You're most valuable, you're most distinct, you're most unique, you're most profitable, you're most fulfilled. When you have that feeling of being energized and being in the flow, I call that a wellspring. You know those tasks, those opportunities at work when you don't feel drained afterwards. You're not discouraged. You don't feel tired. You actually feel uplifted. And you get in the flow. You get in the zone. And that zone is what fascination is. Fascination is an intense focus. And so when you're fascinated, you're deeply engaged in your work, this is when you're going to be not only more effective, but you're going to be able to get those quantum leaps that are the hallmark of high performers. We've seen in our research that the level of fascination somebody has in their job directly correlates to how much money they make. So the opportunity here is for you to figure out not only how can you fascinate other people, but how can you become more fascinated by your own work. And when you can do that, your income is likely to rise. This is all based on the Fascination Advantage. Almost all of you have taken the assessment. The Fascination Advantage assessment is the first assessment that measures how the world sees you based on the principles of branding. And what we're looking for are what are those traits, those hidden patterns underneath how you add value. There are 7 different ways that you can potentially communicate. If you're watching this webinar, you probably are fairly familiar with them. I'm going to go through it really quickly, just in case you haven't already gotten up to speed on it yet. But I'm going to do this as a guided tour of your personality. I want to take you inside your personality. What are all those quirks? I'm going to give you a few fascinating facts that you might not know. I'm going to show you how to apply this. Are you ready? If you're ready, I want you to go into the chat box, and I want you to type yes. Okay, great. So there's 7 different ways to add value. I'm going to go through them very quickly. The first one is power. Power is a leader with authority, somebody who's in a position of control. They don't mind being opinionated, they're confident, they stand in the front of the room. Next is passion. Passion personalities love to connect. Warm, emotive, they like to build an emotional connection. So a passion personality likes to be able to talk, hi, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Exclamation point, smiley face. Now, as you can guess, I'm a passion personality. We tend to use a lot of hand gestures, a lot of vocal intonation. If you and I were talking on the phone right now, I would still be using these hand gestures even if even if I had a headset on, I would like literally prop my ear up to my phone so I could sit there and talk. If I'm talking to somebody with a mystique personality, we tend to have very different interaction styles. A mystique personality wants to be able to get the right answer. They want to focus on pieces of communication. So you see them in jobs that allow them to be solo intellects behind the scenes. They're great in IT. They're great in being able to kind of play that mental chess at work of taking complex problems and sorting out exactly the right solution. But they don't necessarily want to get involved in all of this, like how the sausage is made. So imagine that if I were to come in, I would say, "Hi, how are you doing? Why don't you tell me that you love me anymore?" And a mystique personality would probably say, "I told you I loved you last year, and if that changes, I'll let you know." Now, you can probably apply this in some ways to all kinds of relationships, dating, family, kids. Different people have different ways of interacting, different ways of approaching each other, but it's crucial for you to know the effect that you have on other people so that you can steer that and create a connection. Because passion plus mystique, those two people in a workplace can be an incredibly effective combination. And when they work together, they both bring different advantages. Passion is good at the external. Mystique is good at the internal. Passion likes to jump in. Mystique likes to hang back and observe. Now let's move on. So prestige personalities want higher standards. They push for excellence. Alert personalities are outstanding with detail. I love working with alert personalities because I'm not good at detail. If you're not good at detail and follow-through, then it's crucial for you to find somebody on your team who uses that as their wellspring. Next is innovation. Innovation is creativity and problem solving. So brainstorming, coming up with a myriad of solutions. Then there's trust. Trust is about stability and certainty. Personalities with trust like to come in at the same time each morning. They follow a schedule. They like to know what's coming next, and they're uncomfortable with change. And as a result, they give us stability, and they help our workplaces feel more consistent. So here's what that looks like. Let's take these 7 different modes of communication, and we're going to jump into your archetype. Your archetype is a byproduct of your primary advantage, which is of those 7, you have 1 that is your top score, and it's the way in which you're most likely to communicate persuasively and influentially. Next, you have a secondary advantage. And your secondary advantage is your second score, and it also describes a second way that you're most likely to communicate. When you put the 2 of those together, it gives you sort of a salty sweet. Because you have 2, it gives you a healthy balance. And this is what we call the archetype. An archetype is your primary advantage plus your secondary advantage. And when they're combined, they become the best of how the world sees you. And a critical part of these 49 different archetypes is the adjectives. Now, here's what I want you to get. You don't have to read the entire chart. Nobody has to memorize the chart. The thing that you need to do is to find your archetype, find your adjectives, and then understand how those adjectives fit into the whole picture. So the purpose here is not for you to memorize everything, but to deconstruct it and make it really simple. So I'm going to give you a quick tip. When you look at the book, it's kind of heavy. So I do recommend getting the hardcover book because it has all these cool tools in it, lots of different images and ways that you can use it. But if you only have 10 minutes, here's the fastest way to read it. Take the assessment. You can get it with the scratch off right there in the back. And then I want you to go to your archetype. On your archetype page, there are 5 adjectives. That's your marketing copy. So I drew upon my advertising background and take these 5 adjectives and then just cut and paste this copy. Use it in your LinkedIn profile. Use it in the About section of your website. Use it in your bio, your resume. You can even use it in an online dating profile. But this describes how the world sees you at your best. So that's 10 minutes, and you've already been able to get some cool marketing takeaway. Now, you may not know your archetype has a twin. Didn't even know that you had a family member. Your twin is the exact same top 2 advantages, just putting them in a different order. So, for example, if you have primary power, secondary passion, your twin is the victor. The victor is primary prestige, secondary power. I think I might have messed that up. Hold on. The maestro, I'm going to go back because I want to make sure that I'm getting it right. So the maestro is power plus prestige. When you take those top 2 advantages and you put them in reverse order, it becomes the victor. The victor is prestige plus power. Now, the cool thing about knowing your twin is it kind of gives you a different reflection. It's almost like if you're looking into a mirror, you know those mirrors that have a hinge so that you can see yourself from a different reflection? It allows you to see yourself in a different situation, a different scenario, but yet it's still you. Your twin is the closest score to yours. So I want you to find your twin now. For example, if you're the subtle touch with mystique plus passion, just take those same two, put them in reverse order, and then look up your twin. Your twin is the intrigue, passion plus mystique. So when you look in your online report, you're not able to see your twin. But when you go in the book, it has all the different archetypes. So you're able to see your twin. You're able to see who you are best suited to work with, the personalities that might challenge you in a positive or negative way. If you're the wise owl, that is mystique plus trust. And if we flip that, it becomes trust plus mystique, and that's the anchor. So take a look at your archetype, take a look at your twin, but most of all, I want you to focus on those adjectives, and here's why. Every great brand knows it's not about strengths, it's about differences. The ways that great brands define themselves is not by demonstrating how they're better, but by how they're different. And that difference doesn't have to be huge. In fact, it can be really subtle. But once the brand finds that difference, they want to own it and hone it and dig into it and articulate it over and over again and build all the communication around that point of difference. And the same is true for you. What is your point of difference? Well, these adjectives light the way to exactly what your point of difference is. When you took the advantage, when you took the fascination advantage, your report showed you your top 5 specialty adjectives. You can pick any one of those specialty adjectives or even more, but then go over and take a look at your twin, because your twin gives you another 5 adjectives to choose from. If you want more adjectives to describe yourself or summarize yourself, here's another way to go shopping. You can go inside the book and say if you're a power personality. You can go all the way across this power row looking at those adjectives. If you're a mystique personality, you can go all the way across there. So there's a simple way of doing this and a richer, more varied, complex way of doing this. And in our next webinar, I'm going to be telling you more about it. That webinar will be, we'll be having the encore tomorrow, and then we'll have the next one on August 14th, and I'm going to show you how to build your anthem. For now, I want you to focus on your specialty adjective. Think of a specialty, like when you go into a restaurant and they have a specialty drink or specialty dessert. It's just a simple way that differentiates and helps a brand stand out. In the same way, it helps you stand out. So let's take a look at what these adjectives, how you can find your adjectives. Say if you're a maestro, and as we know, your twin is the victor, then I want you to take a look at the adjectives for the maestro, take a look at the adjectives for the victor, and you'll see that they have a lot in common. You might even write this down. For example, the victor is respected, competitive, and results-oriented. The maestro, the twin, is ambitious, focused, and confident. So when you look at those 6 adjectives together, they create a really clear idea of what the person's value proposition is. That becomes a roadmap for how that person might want to go into meetings, how they would want to communicate and introduce themselves, how they'd want to describe themselves in a bio. It could even become marketing copy to say, for example, I am ambitious, focused, and confident. And if you're like me, you want ambitious, focused, and confident results. So I'm going to work harder for you if you give me your business. Just on a very simple level. That's just showing how we're scratching the surface of how this gives you the perfect words for your marketing copy based on how people see you at your best. So when you're selecting your adjective, go into kind of thinking about those situations when you know you're operating at peak performance and what people really value in you. What do people tell you over and over again is a place where they've worked with you and you've really helped them move the needle on the result. Now here's another fascinating fact, and that is your double trouble. So how is your personality likely to go wrong? Well, that's in the matrix too. And you may not have noticed this, but the matrix has a diagonal line called double troubles. This is a very, very little known fact. When you look at the matrix of 49 archetypes, and almost all of them are very positive, but not all of them are positive. So for example, when you go on this diagonal line, you'll notice that innovation plus innovation is the anarchy. Passion plus passion is the drama. Power plus power is the aggressor. So those are not positives. And here's how you get that primary plus primary. There isn't a person who has this as their archetype. We slide into double trouble when we're stressed, when we're tired. You drop the well-balanced approach of your personality, and instead you become totally focused on one particular trait. And this is where you can turn people off and step on toes. It's really important for you to be aware of the situations that bring out your double trouble. For example, imagine that you're working with somebody in the workplace, and she's a manager, she's social, she's gregarious, she's energetic, she binds people together through conversation. You can always count on her to stop by your office and connect with you and have a good word. But then she goes through a breakup, and she kind of freaks out. And suddenly that double trouble has become something negative. It's become the drama, sensitive, emotive, theatrical. Well, if you can find a way to make sure that you know when you're slipping into this mode, that's how you can avoid it. You can learn more about your double trouble in part 2 of the book. I go in depth into descriptions of how your double trouble might rear its head. Okay, now we're going to do our first little Q&A section. May I call upon my handsome husband for Q&A?
Absolutely.
So I am dying to hear what your questions are. And so
hi, everybody. I have an iPad here, so if you wonder I'm looking down, it's not because I'm not interested. I'm just checking out our questions.
That's so good at eye contact.
Yeah.
You know what? Eye contact is key for making sure that you're fascinated by them.
We have some great questions. Great questions. So
tell us your archetypes, too. Like when you submit a question, give us your name and your archetype, because we love being able to see the context for your question. You can even tell us what you do for a living. That also helps, or maybe a business challenge that you have. The more information you can give, the better. Now remember, you're asking questions for a killer prize.
And so if I ask your question, make sure you raise your hand and say, it's me, because this one says it's from John, and my guess is there might be more than one John out there.
Could be.
Yeah, so but anyway, Sally, you were talking about the double troubles, and that's how too much of your primary, sort of your primary squared. This question is the reverse. It asks about your dormant archetype.
The dormant advantage.
Or dormant advantage, and it says, can you expound on the dormant advantage? How do I move through the quicksand?
Okay. Awesome question. So of the 7 advantages, the one that you score lowest on is your dormant. And when you're scoring low on your dormant, it means that that's effortful, it's exhausting, you don't want to have to do that. For example, if you have a dormant mystique advantage, that means you want to jump right in the heart of the action. You don't want to have to hold back, you don't want to have to wait. You want to make sure that you're able to be like right there, you like to be able to share. People might tell you that you're an open book. Mystique personalities don't hang back in the corner. If you have a passion dormant, that means that you don't like to go into the cocktail party and kind of like hug strangers and make awkward small talk, and for you it feels like it's draining and exhausting, and kind of like you'd rather poke your eyes out if you if you have to go into a cocktail party and talk about superficial stuff. Whereas for a passion personality, that would be really easy. Hugs all around! Exclamation point. So it's important for you to understand those areas where you have an advantage, but in your dormant, you have a disadvantage. So imagine that you're on a team, and everybody there has, say, primary prestige. That means they're going to be really results-oriented, they're going to be focused, they're going to be achievement-oriented, they're better, and they're willing to work really hard to overachieve. If you have a dormant prestige advantage, you're going to be at a disadvantage if you're evaluated according to the same criteria, because for you, you see the world in a more inclusive space. You don't want to be threatening other people or directly competing. You want to be more involved. So when you understand what your dormant is, it helps you see those places why certain tasks feel like quicksand.
So tying into that question, Jana asks, if you're hiring a team, and you're hiring people to come onto your team and you test them with the assessment first, should you pick someone necessarily as your assistant, someone with your dormant advantage? Is that a good strategy, for instance? Yeah,
that can be a great strategy. The advantages that I score lowest in, remember, I'm passion and innovation, but my lowest are mystique, alert, and trust. Well, guess what 3 advantages I specifically hire for? Now, and it's not an accident.
She doesn't marry for those. She hires for those.
I definitely. Funny. So literally on the job application, it will be turn in your Fascination Advantage results with your resume, because to me, the resume isn't as important as the Fascination Advantage results. So I can see, I can teach somebody skills, but I can't teach them an advantage. Your advantages are things that are the way in which you naturally excel.
So here's a great one. It's about the anthem.
Ooh,
and this question, you didn't leave a name here, so if you don't mind, tell us your name. But the question is, how did the anthem come about? I believe it extends the life and value of the book. So do I.
You know what? I got to tell you.
This is a funny story about how really the anthem. Tell them the true story.
The true story.
True story.
Okay. True story. In advertising, an anthem is when you proclaim your highest value. Like when Nike says, "Just do it." It's a rallying cry. It's a mantra. It's much more than just words. So, and when I was an advertising copywriter working for brands like Nike, that was my specialty, was writing anthems. But I always wanted to be able to write the anthem for people based on their Fascination Advantage results, but I couldn't crack the code. I didn't know how to do it. And then finally, right before the manuscript was due, after 4 years, literally 4 years, I got this epiphany, and I realized I saw exactly what the formula is, and I lay it out step by step in part 3 of the book. So it's really easy to write the anthem, which is the tagline for your personality. So when you're meeting people, you can instantly summarize who you are at your best in those first 9 seconds of the interaction. And so I called my publisher, and I said, good news and bad news. Anyway, long story short, it was a very expensive and difficult decision, and one that nobody else agreed with me, but I felt so strongly that I wanted the anthem to be in the book, and now, to be completely honest, it's my favorite part of the entire book. Go to page 367 in the book, and you will see the anthem exercise, and you'll see how to apply it. It is transformational. I think it's my life's work. To me, it's the biggest breakthrough that we've ever had. So,
So, Sally, we're going to have one more question, and then we're going to do some trivia. So we're going to come back. I'll have a few more questions to answer. We'll have some trivia questions, and it would be helpful to have your copy of the book with you to answer the trivia.
If you have it.
If you have it.
And can I pause to say?
Perfectly.
We're going to be giving a very, very cool bonus, one-of-a-kind bonus. If you purchase the book, if you purchase one book, at the website, not on Amazon, at the website at howtheworldseesyou.com. Not that one.
Oh.
It is this.
Yeah.
This is called a galley. It's the pre-release version. We only have 500 left, but we're giving them away over the next 48 hours if you buy one copy of a hardcover copy. Hardcover galley. You get 2 for the price of 1. But the cool thing is, I'm going to sign this one. So you will have a signed galley, and these become collector's editions. You can sell it on eBay.
Yeah, the galley, I didn't know what a galley was before this, but the galley this is what goes out in advance to the reviewers at a newspaper or a TV show or something.
Right.
Right, so we got some extra copies.
And they only do one print run. Anyway, we only have 500 copies left, so they go to the first 500 people who order at howtheworldseesyou.com.
Okay, before she kicks me out, here is our prize. Check that out.
For the question askers.
For the question askers.
Show them the front.
All right, so here's the front.
Archetype.
Archetype on top.
So advantage, and then archetype.
Okay, and then on the back.
Adjectives and your name.
So you've got what makes up your anthem, and you got your archetype all right there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Okay,
let's
do our. Wait, no, we're doing speed. Are we doing speed trivia now?
Oh, we're not doing speed trivia.
We're not.
Come back and do
Okay,
it.
we're coming back. Okay, so get your book out and get ready so we can do speed trivia. Okay, moving on. The most common question I'm asked is, how did you create the assessment, and how is this different than other assessments? So I'm just going to cover this very quickly so you have a little bit of context for how I see how the world sees you. My background was in branding. I was a creative director. These were my clients over the first half of my career. And in my last book, which is named Fascinate, I explored the science of fascination. And I found that fascination is a neurological state of intense focus. When you're fascinated by somebody, you're only thinking about them. And I thought, well, what if we could have a system to be able to apply this not just for brands, but also for people? And so I started talking to neurologists, and I found that in a state of fascination, the brain opens up almost like it's falling in love. And in that moment, if you fascinate your listener, you become most worthy of their attention. They're not thinking about their iPhone. They're not thinking about their next meeting. They're not thinking about your competitor. They're not getting distracted by what they're going to feed their kids for dinner. They're only thinking about you. And this is when it gets really powerful, because in that state, it's almost like they're falling in love with you when their mind goes into a state of yes. So here's what it looks like. This is the output of the 4 years of developing the assessment. We measured 300,000 professionals. It began with a beta test in 2010. Just for the beta test alone, we tested for 1 year, and we tested 30,000 people to get the initial batch of research. The original assessment was 153 questions and took 30 minutes. Now we've culled it down to 28 questions because we found in the algorithm that those 28 questions gave us everything that we need. And now with our new platform that we just launched a few months ago, we can compare your result to the average population. So we can tell you how your intensity of advantages is different than other people on average. And you'll get to see your primary and secondary. You'll get to explore what makes you different and better than other people. But the key here is that you won't get to see what all of the other archetypes are. So if you want to go shopping for the perfect team, you have to go into the book, because we don't, your report will just tell you about you. Now here's a cool little insider look at our fascinating findings. You can also find some of this information in the very back of the book in the appendix labeled our fascinating findings. We've, when we go in and we work with teams at companies like AT&T, GE, Cisco, Qualcomm, California Pizza Kitchen, when we go in and we measure a team, everybody does the assessment, and then we see their results before we go in and start working with them. Now you probably look at this, and for you this looks like just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. To me this looks like a portrait. I can tell so much about a team when I first get this raw data. It's showing their proportion of advantages and the ways in which they may have potential personality pitfalls. Then we take this data and we put it into graphics so that people can really see visually the way their group compares to the average population. This is one of the big breakthroughs we had about a year ago. We started creating heat maps of groups so we could actually show what the archetype percentages were. If you're a visual person like me, then you like dots instead of numbers. So we started creating them with dots. And we have a constant evolution to this process. We see what is fascinating to people. What do they love seeing? What do we love doing when we get excited about something? When our team at the Fascination Laboratory gets super psyched about something, we know that we're onto something big. Last year we began studying high performers. And so when we went inside teams, we looked at the people who are getting the best results. We found very specific things in common. I described this in depth in part 1 of the book, those people that add the most value. It's not based on a particular industry, a particular level in the organization, a particular gender or pay grade. It's based on the people who are the highest performers of what they do. We found they have a personality specialty. In other words, there's something very distinct that they're doing in their communication that differentiates them. The next thing we found is they over-deliver in one particular way. They don't try to be all things to all people. The reality is, you're not going to be great at everything. You can't be great at everything. In fact, you're going to be really bad at some things, but you can be extraordinary in one way. And when you're extraordinary in one way, you become a high performer because you can over-deliver. So you want to be able to identify what that is. That's what the Fascination Advantage helps you do. And then you want to articulate it, which is what Building Your Anthem does in part 3 of the book. Finally, high performers don't have to compete on price. They tend to make more money because they're not a commodity. Now, I'm going to take you on a little personal journey inside my scrapbook of what it was like over the last 4 years, the agony and the ecstasy, by showing you some personal, candid photographs of what it was like in creating not just this book, but really the system. The book is not a book. The book is a representation of the entire system that we got into one place. So it's a whole body of research. Think of the book more like a tool. So it began about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when HarperCollins, we finally agreed on the contract. I love my editors there, love the team there, Hollis Heimbach, Colleen Lowry. They were such huge supporters for me during the process of Fascinate. And now we've been talking about this book for about a year, but we hadn't figured out exactly what the book was going to be. So this was a big day for me because we finally officially got started. But then the agony began. Because the reality is, I'm not good at organizing really complicated lists of Word docs. I'm a very visual person, and so for me, long Word docs it feels like OCD, and I hate it. So the way I wrote the book is I took little strips of paper with all the different sections, all the points that I wanted to make, and I literally just arranged them on my dining room table for about a month. And when I was finally done, I sent it off, and that's how you got the part 1 of the book, which is about distraction competition, part 2 of the book is about the archetypes, and part 3, which is about the anthem. I have an amazing team. The office used to be here, and we have an upstairs office. Everybody would come into work in the morning, and our kids would be here. Ed would be walking around in his pajamas. I mean, it was like a little TMI, so we finally decided we need to get a building. And this is our building. It's named the Fascination Laboratory. This is the day that we signed the lease. Kind of like, you can tell we're like a little freaked out, like, oh, no, we have overhead. But it's actually been great. It's allowed our team to grow and really build a culture. Right around the same time, while I was working on the book, I was spending a lot of time sitting in a chair, so we thought, hey, let's get a puppy. So this is our puppy, and her name is Bacon, because she looks like a little pig. She's a French bulldog. And Bacon has become a huge part of the family, but her favorite chew toy has been my manuscript. And every day, the manuscript process went on for about a year, and I like to be able to print my pages and kind of edit by hand so I can see what's really going on visually. Bacon chewed up all of it. It was kind of a dog ate my homework. Then I was in the stage of the manuscript where I had to spend a lot of time while I was. Oh, look, we have a special guest. Hold on, I'm coming back to Bacon. Well, there are two people I'd like to introduce you to, and now here she is. Hi, baby. So this is hi, Bacon, and this is. I mean, no, come on. Which one is cuter, right? This is Azalea. Azalea, show them what your archetype is.
I am the catalyst.
She's the catalyst. Now turn it around. And, oh, you have on one of my shirts. Sally Hogshead. Azalea and I are the same archetype. It's convenient so you can share clothes. Will you take a little Bacon?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear how she snorts just like a pig? I mean, it's awesome. Bacon Hogshead is her name. So, as I was writing the book, I wanted to be able to write in really inspiring places. And so instead of just holing up in a cave, I decided that we were going to go on a vacation, but it was going to be a writing vacation. And the whole purpose of it was to pick a relaxing and inspiring environment so that I could really create big, juicy ideas. So we went on a cruise in the Mediterranean, and then we went to Tuscany. And it was one of the most prolific writing periods of my entire career. We woke up every morning early, had coffee, and then I wrote for a period of time. And I was just in this flow state. And this is where a lot of the really big concepts in part one of the book came from, that I think if I had been tethered to email and in an office situation, I wouldn't have been able to do that. This is what the archetype matrix used to look like while I was showing it off with the beautiful scenery. This was a wonderful memory. We were in a 14th century castle, a medieval castle that had been a fortress. And there I was. You can see me there on the cabana while I was working on part one of the book, while I was describing the concepts of why your personality has an umami, meaning the fifth flavor, or why you have a personality halo, all those big inspiring ideas. Throughout this whole thing, when I got back and I had to print, Bacon was still there chewing on manuscripts. And then finally the manuscript was done, and my whole team came together. We prayed on the manuscript that it was going to be okay. We sent that thing off, and then soon after the galleys came, the galleys arrived on this huge truck from the printer. I mean, this truck was so unfathomably big, and we originally had 6,000 of them, as you know. We now only have 500 left. But if you order a book today on howtheworldseesyou.com, you get a free galley, which is basically a 2-for-1. So when the galleys came, it was like we were on the downslope. You know, it felt like we had the wind at our backs, and that's when things really started to pick up. This was about 3 months ago. Very soon after that, we started picking up steam. Oprah.com named us as one of their top summer reading picks. IBM named us Business Book of the Month. Amazon editors picked us as one of their favorite books of July. But our two favorites were probably being #2 on the New York Times bestseller list and #1 on Wall Street Journal. I don't have words. Just to be able to create that with my team and to know how hard we worked to try different things and experiment. We had to be scrappy, and we tried a lot of really untraditional marketing, which I'll describe in later webinars. It was amazing, and so this is one of my favorite moments. We found out that when we found out that we were Wall Street Journal #1 bestseller, we gathered together. We had a bottle of champagne, but we didn't have glasses, so we took plastic cups out of the kitchen, and it was just an incredible joy bonding our team together. So this is what the book looks like on the inside when I finally got a copy of the hardcover. And it's one of my favorite things because we had really debated how do we show the matrix in color. It was literally in my contract with the publisher that I got to have the matrix in color in the book, because it was so important to me, that design integrity, but we didn't know how to put it in there. And then the production team at HarperCollins came up with the solution. I just think it's beautiful. So now, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do some speed trivia. Okay, so here's how speed trivia works. We're going to ask you a question, and the first person who comes in with the right answer, the first person who types it in is going to get a t-shirt, okay? T-shirt with your advantage, your archetype, and your name on the back.
Hey.
Okay.
So the first question we're going to have is, if you, by the way, having the book is a little bit of a help here, by the way. What is the double trouble for prestige? Ready, go. That's question number one. And Sally, should I wait till they're done questioning for that before I get the answer?
No, go on, because they're going to be,
okay.
They'll be doing their thing. So we'll go on, and then when you come back,
we'll have
then we'll have answers.
So here's my favorite one. What subject? Now you have to give the specific class, not just the subject. Like you can't just say English or math. So what subject did Mrs. Stevenson give Sally a D+ in the 5th grade? That was a formative, career-changing.
I know. I could never. It's like burned into my memory.
And that hint that's in the book. And then number 3, in looking for anthems, what is an anthem in the book for the blue chip archetype?
Excellent.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to come back, and we're going to tell you who wins speed trivia.
I'll be back.
You'll be back.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Okay. So you, in addition to getting all these cool prizes, you are also invited into Project Fascination. We created a whole project around this because we felt like we wanted to be able to pay this forward. We've seen the huge difference that it makes in somebody's life when they understand just how valuable they are. So when you go to projectfascination.com, you'll be able just to sign up, and instantly you'll get a code for 100 free assessments. The assessments are $37 each, and so if you get 100 of them, that's $3,700 in free assessments that you can use to share. You can post it on Twitter, you can post it on Facebook, you can send it out to your team, you can donate it to a nonprofit, you can give it to a college class, you can share it with your friends, people who might be struggling in their career at some point, you can give it to your family. The key is that we want you to actively share it in the spirit of helping people discover what makes them valuable. So circle back with them and talk them through their results. Help them understand how the world sees them at their best so that they can embody that and become more of that. The world would be a much better place if everybody knew what makes them most valuable. So it's a totally free program, and it's only open through the month of August. So at the end of August, all your codes are going to expire. So you want to use them quickly. Next, here's when you join Project Fascination, you get an exclusive invitation into our private Facebook group for free. Now, there's so much amazing discussion that happens inside the Project Fascination Facebook group. These are all the people who are totally focused on how they can be applying this and asking great questions and giving great content. But my favorite, our favorite, was that a couple took the archetype matrix and found the superheroes that correlate to each one of them. And so when you join Project Fascination and you get access to the Facebook page, you'll be able to see what your superhero is. I just love it. I love when people take this and they make it their own. Okay, so Ed, do we have our answers from Speed Trivia? I see him. Ed's a
we have two.
We have two.
We're waiting on one more.
Ed's a maverick leader. Okay.
One more.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to keep going then.
Yeah.
Ed and I have 8 children together. Yes, we have 8. And these 8 children, they look so innocent and happy here in this photograph. But when they had a moment to relax, this is what they look like. I think they spend a little bit more time being fascinated by their devices. And in our house, everybody loves ice cream. So let me tell you a concept about ice cream from the book. In our house, because we have so many different tastes, so many different personalities, I buy vanilla because I want it to be a crowd pleaser. I don't want to have to differentiate and have 10 different kinds. I just want to buy vanilla and be done with it, because anybody can be happy with vanilla. You know, you can put vanilla ice cream on anything. You can put anything on vanilla ice cream and it qualifies as dessert with minimal whining. A lot of brands operate like this. They try to be all things to all people. And that works really well if you have the biggest budget. If you have the biggest budget, you can afford to be boring. If you are the most famous in your category, you can afford to be boring. But the reality is that if you don't have the biggest budget, you need to be the most fascinating. And for that, we need to take a lesson from pistachio. Not everybody likes pistachio. Most people do not like pistachio ice cream. But the people who like pistachio crazy love pistachio ice cream. And so when you talk to people, when they want pistachio, they only want pistachio. So it's polarizing. It's a strategically polarizing choice. But you have an option. You can either be the vanilla of your category, meaning spending the most money on marketing or being the most famous, or you can take the different route, and you can be the pistachio. You can be the underdog that has a distinct point of view that polarizes. People are crazy passionate if you're the pistachio of your category. So think, what are those traits that make you different? Remember we were talking about your adjectives and how your adjectives describe what makes you different. Well, if you can be the pistachio, in other words, if you can hone those differences using the tools in part 3 of the book, you'll be the pistachio so that you'll have those passionate fans who want to keep coming back to you again and again. Now I'm going to take you through one of my other favorite concepts. The concept is the language of fascination. There are 7 languages of fascination. These are based on the advantages. You're already speaking 2 of these languages. When you think of how each of the advantages communicates differently, they have a correlation in their language. Passion is the language of relationship. Trust is the language of stability. Mystique is the language of listening. Prestige is the language of excellence. Power is the language of confidence. Alert is the language of details, and innovation is the language of creativity. So that means that's how you speak. You don't need to be fluent in all 7 different advantages, but you do need to know a few words. It's like when Ed and I were in Italy while we were writing the book over the summer. We didn't speak any Italian. I don't even know how to ask to go to the restroom. We didn't even know how to order a glass of wine, both of which are crippling. So So it's key to just know a little bit about the language of the person that you're talking to, and to know how they're hearing you based on the words you choose and the way that you communicate. So when I first started being a speaker, a professional speaker, I thought that I should be speaking the language of prestige and power. So language of excellence, language of confidence. And to be honest, I don't score that high on prestige and power. That's not really how I speak. That's not my language. And so you can see in this photograph, I look really discouraged. I was exhausted. I was demoralized. I was working incredibly hard. I was on the road all the time. I wasn't making enough money to cover my overhead. It was a really, really tough time of my career. And then finally, I realized that I was trying to communicate with the wrong languages. And so I shifted just a little bit to start speaking my own languages, which is the language of passion, which is relationship, and innovation, which is the language of creativity. And once I built my entire career in my marketing around relationship and creativity, suddenly my whole career opened up. I started getting the kind of engagements that I wanted to. I started being able to have the audiences respond and interact in the way that I wanted to. It completely transformed my career. Not because I changed who I was, I just changed how I was communicating to be more authentic based on who I already am and what I'm already doing at my best. Same is true for you. When you understand the language that you're speaking, you can speak that language in a far better way and be heard and remembered and get people to take action. Now, before we close, I'm going to ask Ed if we have a winner and if we have any Q&A we want to share.
We do have a winner. And before we get to that, though, some of you weren't here right at the very beginning, and we wanted to let you know that we were late due to some technical difficulties in starting, and we apologize. We know your time's as valuable or more valuable than ours, so we just want to let you know that, and thank you for your patience, everybody, including those people that arrived after.
And we will be doing a free encore, not just a replay. We're actually going to be back here tomorrow. We're going to redo the whole thing. So if you want to tune back in for another live opportunity to win a t-shirt, then join us.
We're going to do backlashings too. Yeah. So some of you are also sending questions to Sally. And Sally's here right now, so she can't answer the questions, but we want to answer them. So send them to hello@howtofascinate.com.
Well, should they be doing it in the web chat?
The web chat but also follow-up questions. We're getting some specific questions to Sally, and so if you send them to hello@howtofascinate.com, that's our customer service team, and we'll be able to get as many of those answered as quickly as we can that way. So now on to the winners. Okay, the answer to the first question is, what is the double trouble? The answer is
the double trouble for prestige.
The double trouble for prestige, and Carrie Lang, L-I-A-N-G, got the answer right, which is the Imperial. Woo-hoo. Now, Carrie, do us a favor. You have to send us your email address and your address and all your information so we can get you your prize, okay? Second winner to the second question is Adrienne. And Adrienne, A-D-R-I-E-N-N-E, got that right. Adrienne, go ahead and send us in your information as well. And the answer to that is pre-algebra. Pre-algebra was the class that Sally got the D+ in, not a C-. She got the D+ in from Mrs. Stevenson. That was game-changing.
But it was an epiphany.
I'm thankful to Mrs. Stevenson.
It's in the book. I know. It's literally in the report. Actually, I will. The report card is right here. It's kind of yellowed. I think you can sort of see it. And here's what Mrs. Stevenson said. She said, there's a fine line in math between being creative and being erratic. No value judgment, right? I will continue to support Sally in using her creativity, but becoming more consistent in her work. And that's when I got the D.
And that's the real report card.
Yeah, well, but here's the point. You can't be great at everything. I don't speak the language of math. I'm not a detail person. I was never going to be great at math. It didn't matter how hard I tried. It didn't matter how hard she tried. There are going to be times in your life when you're going to fail because you're being evaluated according to criteria that are simply not how you communicate. So if you go back over your life and you look at those times when you supposedly failed, you got a D. You didn't get on the team. You lost the job. Could it be that you were just being evaluated according to criteria that were not how you're suited to succeed? Could it be that it just simply wasn't the right scenario for you? And that's why it's so important for you to understand the ways in which you are suited to succeed so you can focus your entire career on that. I would love to send a copy of my book to Mrs. Stevenson.
That'd be great. So, well, the other thing that's what I love about the assessment is it shows you your dormant advantage. And the beauty behind that is once you know who you are with your advantages, you also know who you're not. What Sally posits is don't spend your time on who you're not. Become more of the best of who you are. It's been really helpful to me, and I think it is to a lot of people. Third question, Brian. Now, Brian, that's all I have from you. I don't have an email address, last name.
It's Misty.
Honor system, the Brian who got it right is the right. And this is, what is the anthem in the book for the blue chip? And that is classic expertise.
Nicely done, Brian.
Yes, good job, Brian.
Are there any other questions that you would like to share?
Yeah, there was a question that more than a few people asked, and they said, what makes this assessment different from, say, the DISC or Myers-Briggs or one of those type assessments?
Yes. A traditional assessment measures how you see the world. This one measures how the world sees you. Now, I covered that off, but let me give you a bit of deeper knowledge. Most assessments measure who you are in that moment. This assessment measures who you are at your best. So you're not always at your best, but when you are at your best, when you can see that and you can focus on it with a compass, it allows you to steer all of your communication to that so that you can be more consistent, more able to replicate your successes. Once you know, look, this is quicksand, it's a danger zone, you've got to put caution tape around there. It's not that you can't do those things, it's just that's not how you're primed to succeed. And instead, focus over here so that you can make sure that everything you do in your life is aligned through work and life with who you are at your best.
That work and life brings up the next set of questions, which were, the book is very much about, or applications of the book are very much about business, but many of the questions that people have been asking say, what are ways that you can use the assessment and your advantages outside of the work in the rest of your life, the other 90% of life?
who you are at your best shouldn't be different at work, in your work, and in your life. In other words, who you are with your kids, there's a thread there. It may not be exactly the same person, but if the way that you succeed at work is by being loyal and sincere and nurturing as a beloved, the beloved archetype, passion plus trust, then who you are at home is probably the same thing. That comparison is easy to see. But if who you are at work is detailed and analytical and focused, then the way you serve your family at home and your community is probably by planning the meals and making sure that the house runs well and that we avoid stress. The more that you can find those threads, the more that you can connect the pieces of your life, the more effective you're going to be able to be, because you can stop struggling to try to figure out what's working. And that's what happens when you take the assessment and you look in the book and you find those adjectives and you read your report and then you read who you're not. That's kind of when the light bulb goes off for a lot of people. Like, when you read your report, it's like, well, yeah, of course this is me. But then people kind of are doubting because they're thinking, well, maybe
every description sounds
like this. But then they go in the book and they can read, that's not me, that's not me, that's definitely not me. Then it helps you figure out how to put a team together, who you're best suited to in different parts of your life, and maybe the people that you want to be a little bit cautious of, because you're not going to get a great result together.
Well, one thing that I've learned is it also helps you understand people better. For instance, anybody who hasn't had their spouse or significant other take the assessment, have them do it, because once
watch the videos of each other.
Yeah, once you get to understand them.
Take the assessment, then he has a video where I say, you are the archer.
Yeah, it helps you say, okay, well, why have I beaten my head against the wall, trying to change them? This is how they are. And it helps them just to, understand who they are at their best and then cherish who they are at their best.
Can I give them an example?
I hope so.
Okay, so Ed is a maverick leader. The maverick leader is innovation plus power. Maverick leaders are entrepreneurial, pioneering, and irreverent. Those are their three adjectives. So that means Ed is at his best when he can come into a situation and solve it in a really entrepreneurial, irreverent way, come up with a new solution. He doesn't want to keep doing what's been done before. That for him is not only boring, but it's not his area of highest competence. But what that means is that I also have to know that Ed will probably run late sometimes because he's very creative in his concept of time. Maverick leaders, in our anecdotal research, we find that they're so creative, they're so good at making those nonlinear leaps, they tend to do things like lose car keys and
wallets,
yeah.
They always come back.
House keys. Yeah, like literally one time Ed and I put a brick through our beach house window because I have secondary innovation. So if he's primary innovation, I'm secondary innovation. That means we're really creative and we're not really good at managing all the little details. So things happen like we want to go to sleep, so I have to put a brick through the window. Okay, I think that's, now we're getting TMI.
Okay, I'm gonna head out.
Are you scared?
I am now. Yeah.
Can you ask Azalea to come over?
I will.
Okay.
Azalea, encore.
Okay, so I spent a lot of my time writing my book in places like Panera. So I want to give a shout out to all the coffee shops of the world. Thank you for giving me a home, my home away from home. Hi, love. Come on in. Can you say hi?
Hi.
So when I started writing this book, Azalea was 6 years old, and she's 10 years old now. And this is Azalea a couple of years ago. Remember, Azalea, when you gave your book report? What book did you do your book report on?
Yours.
On Fascinate. She did her third grade book report on Fascinate. The book describes like Jägermeister case studies and talks about lust and vice, but high five. You totally did it. And there's something that I want to read to you, Azalea. Something from the book. This is the introduction of the book. It's the close of the introduction. And the title is Unlearn Boring. My daughter Azalea is 10 years old, and she expresses herself with the fearlessness of a young girl who's not yet acquired the self-doubt of public failure. She hasn't learned boring yet. I know she'll probably learn it soon. Or more accurately, the world will teach her. One day she'll forget the steps, or miss the ball, or flunk the test. Someone will tell her she's not good enough, or smart enough, or cool enough to this, and not enough that. And no matter how untrue it is, no matter how much evidence there is to the contrary, she'll take a little piece of her personality and she'll hide it away in a box. And here's what I want to tell my daughter and your daughter and you. You don't have to find the light. You are the light. And when you let your personality shine, you can light up the world. I love you.
I love you.
Mwah. Thank you for joining me. Okay. Bye. So here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to find the light. You don't have to find the light. You are the light. When you can let your personality shine, you can light up the world. I loved being able to bring you inside my home and share my family with you. Most of all, I'm honored that you joined me today and that you stuck it out with me. We'll be doing an encore tomorrow, and that will be a live, another live version. You can ask more questions. You can still get your galley copy at How the World Sees You. I'm told that we still have some left. And most of all, as you think about who you are at your best, I want you to give that to somebody else. I want you to help somebody else understand how they add value. The greatest gift you can give is to show someone else their highest value, for you to show someone else how they make a difference. So if in any way this webinar and the book have allowed you to understand how you add value, please pay it forward and give that to somebody else. Show someone else how they don't need to find the light. They are the light, so that they can use their personality to light up the world. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have follow-up questions, send them to hello@howtofascinate.com. Mwah. Bye.